Good morning, members of the Chaos Academy. This is Nona MacDermid, founder and CEO of Flourish Management Consulting. Welcome to our Chaos Crushing session on multiple POs, one invoice. I want to start out by giving a big, grateful shout out to Chris in our Spire community for sending us this interesting challenge. When we send out a purchase order, aka a PO, affectionately referred to as a PO, to a supplier, normally we receive one invoice for the purchase order if everything was shipped in one delivery. Sometimes the supplier will send multiple deliveries to fill one purchase order, and in those cases, the supplier will either invoice each delivery as its own invoice, or wait until the purchase order is fully delivered and then send one invoice for that PO. But you notice that there's a bit of a comparison there that each delivery receives an invoice, or all of the deliveries receive the invoice, but there's still one purchase order number and one invoice number. But in Chris's Chaos Challenge, excuse me, he has a supplier that sends one invoice that covers multiple purchase order documents. So he wants some help from the Flourish team. So just Spire easily handles one purchase order, one invoice, and one purchase order, multiple invoices. So we're going to demonstrate how, with a little Chaos Academy creativity, we can use Spire's features to solve Chris's challenge. You can see that I'm in my Chaos Academy company right now, and we're in the Purchases tab. You can see I'm selected on Purchases here. I have many purchase orders open and received and issued and all different statuses at this point, but the only ones I'm really interested in right now are ones that are in a status of received. And in this case, I'm just going to sort here, and we can see that we have a number of received purchase orders from AJ Cohen distributors. So we're going to focus on them. First thing we're going to need to do is to start posting the invoice. So let's go to step 1, and my invoice has just arrived from AJ Cohen, and it has invoice number J3638. And when I look on the invoice, it lists that it's covering off purchase order 87, 88, and 71. So let's go ahead and start posting the invoice. So we'll start out here. Come into my invoice. I'm going to select invoice. If you had freight, you could add that. I'm going to ignore it for the purposes of this example. J3638. I'm not changing the terms here, and I'll leave the invoice date as it is and the due date, but you could certainly override those if you needed to. We'll post this. And I will close the order. It's fully received, so I'm good to go. Now I'll come into purchase order 87, which is also listed on my invoice from AJ Cohen, and I will invoice again. Same idea, could add freight, but I'm going to ignore it for today. 3638. When I select post, Spire will say, you already used that invoice number for this vendor. Do you want to continue? Now, ordinarily, we would not be posting the same invoice number to the same vendor. So Spire will give us the warning. But in this particular instance, we will go ahead and continue with the same invoice number. And then I will, oh, sorry, maybe I didn't hit yes. I will go back and do that. Invoice. Oh, I did. So there's nothing left to invoice there, so I'm fine. And I could close that out. And then I will come into AJ Cohen again, invoice, and do the same thing, J3638. It already exists. I understand that. I'm going to continue, and I'm going to post. And I will close the order. So those are the ones that are listed on the document. So I will go ahead now and go over to my accounts payable. When I go into AJ Cohen, you can see that I can sort on my reference numbers, and I have 363636. Those were all items that were on an earlier invoice. If I select them, I can see my total. So then I know that I'm matched to the invoice that was sent to me. In this particular case, I'm going to check my 3638 ones. And miraculously, that is the balance on my invoice, so I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a payment to AJ Cohen for these two invoices. So I've selected them both, and I will select my payment. In this example, I could print a check, but for this example, I'm going to use an EFT remittance, which is more common today. And so I can put in a reference field here. Now, in the references, the supplier is going to be seeing their invoice number. Each of these three items are associated with invoice number 3636, and each of these three items are associated with 3638. So it would be very easy for them to see the payments that you're making. In this case, just for our example, I'm going to also just put in the detail here. Now, obviously, if you had 35 invoices being paid, you wouldn't be able to put them all in the reference or the memo field, but there are other ways that the supplier is going to get the information, so it really isn't going to be a problem for them. Payment on invoices. So we are now ready to post the payment. I will post, and you see I have an AP remittance. I would normally email that to them, but in this case, I'm just going to preview it so we can see it. And you can see now they have a reference here because we typed it in, but as I mentioned, it wouldn't work if you had 30 invoices on the same payment. But they have a reference here. For each purchase order, they see the invoice number. And so this is just a bit more detailed breakout than they would ordinarily get. We can also customize documents if it was valuable to you as a customer to have it so that every reference would then have a subtotal. We could easily modify the form to be able to achieve that. But for most suppliers, this would be enough information for them to easily post your payment on account. For you as a user coming into your account and seeing your details, you will be able to see the invoice number here in your reference field. And you can also, if you show debits, you're going to see your payments. And so then if you're looking at a payment that you made, you can easily expand it and see the, oh, sorry, that was a correction we've posted. So in this case, you can see all of the invoices that were paid and which associated purchase orders were connected to each payment. So, and in looking at that method, we feel we have a solution for being able to post one invoice and then link it nicely. It gives the supplier the information they need to post. It gives you the ability to continue to close your purchase orders to your accounts payable in an efficient manner. And it gives the reporting that you would need to be able to trace your payments and purchase orders. I will also mention that if you did want to ever look at payments, let's just say that we went into AJ Cohen here, and I took my ledger, then I could just, oh, sorry, I have to put that in here. And if I run my report here, I have a disbursements journal that is very handy in situations such as this. So here would be the payments list. If I wanted the very detailed ledger, I could run that again and take my vendor transactions. And you could see in the transaction activity the payments that were made. If I say show details when I run those reports, I will get, and I'll leave both of them selected here so we can see them both at the same time. I could get very detailed listing of each one of the disbursements and what was applied to it. This is just a correction. The same thing on the vendor transaction activity. So here's a payment, and then here are the items that went with it. Here's another payment, and here's the items that went with it. We really appreciate it when customers send us questions for interesting challenges. So if you have an interesting challenge that you're hoping to solve with your business system, feel free to send us messages through our Facebook or LinkedIn pages, or certainly you can always email us at support@flourishconsulting.ca. You can also go to our website, flourishconsulting.ca, and there's a section on our contact page where you can send a request. I will post those contacts in our comments below. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and if you have any interest in learning more about the Flourish team and the services we provide, or Spire and what you can do with the amazing Canadian-built software that we love so much, let us know. We'd be happy to help.